Hey everyone, and welcome back. In today's video, I will show you how to manage your network devices using Netmiko library in Python to push commands and configuration changes across single and multiple devices, as well as show you how to interact with multiple vendors. So for those that don't know Netmiko, let me explain that quickly. So Netmiko is designed to automate the interactions with network devices. For example, instead of manually logging into each device to run certain commands or push configuration changes, Netmiko allows you to automate this process using Python scripts. It works with various network devices from different vendors such as Cisco, Juniper, Fortinet, etc., etc. And this versatility is handy if you have multi-vendor network. You might ask yourself, all right, all of that sounds really good, but why? Simply because it allows you to automate repetitive tasks, which it reduces the time and effort needed to manage your network devices, and also ensures consistency in how commands are sent and how output is received, prevents error that might occur with manual interactions and human error. And also, it supports multi vendor. This means you can use the same library and the same scripts for different types of devices, making your automation more versatile and scalable. Finally, it has the ability to detect the device type for you. So if you have a network that contains hundreds of devices, Netmiko will be able to detect the iOS type for it if it is supported. It will also aid in creating an inventory of devices with active SSH services. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to show you how you can find the Netmiko supported device. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up a web browser, and in there I'm going to say Netmiko supported devices. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to select on the first link that you see on the screen here. And from there, you will be able to see the portal for the supported platforms. And as you can see, the list is just huge. If I keep just scrolling down, you can see all the different platforms that are supported by Netmiko. So I'm not going to go through it with you just yet. I will leave that to you guys. I will put the reference in the description, and I will leave you to discover the different types, and you can see if your platform is supported, etc., etc. But I just wanted to point that out for you. Okay. With that being said, before I go ahead and show you how you can build your script using Netmiko in Python, let me discuss with you Python virtual environment. So much like the same way when we use a virtual machine in VMware or VirtualBox, or even using EVE-NG to mimic the Cisco hardware as an example. So we know if I have multiple virtual machines, for example, and let's say I'm going to install a piece of software in one of the VMs, that means that the other virtual machines are not going to be impacted or affected. So we are isolating all the activities in a single virtual machine. That would help us have multiple VMs with multiple OS systems without causing any issues with overlapping software version and whatnot. So again, you might want to ask me, yeah, okay, but why use Python virtual environment? Well, I have good 5 reasons why you should use Python virtual environment. So the first reason is no more mix-up. What do I mean by that? You know how Python packages can sometimes clash, and one project might need one version while another needs something else. Virtual environments keep things separated, like having little Python bubbles for each project. This means no more mix-ups. The second reason, keeping dependencies in check. For instance, have you ever had a project that works like magic on your computer, but not on someone else's? Virtual environments let you lock in your project's dependencies. It's literally like having a recipe that others can follow to get the same result. My third reason easy switching. Right, what do I mean by that? Imagine juggling between different projects and their requirements. With virtual environments, you can easily switch between them. It's like changing the channel on your TV, just a simple command away. I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. My fourth reason is clean and tidy code space. Your project folder can get cluttered with all sort of stuff, right? Virtual environments keep things neat. All those extra files and packages, they go into a separate folder. Clean project, happy coder. And finally, my fifth reason is your Python, your rules. Sometimes you need a specific version of Python for a project. Virtual environments let you pick and choose. It's like having your favorite ice cream flavor. You get what you want. Okay, so if you are wondering how to make your Python life easier, virtual environments are the way to go. And this is what we're going to use moving forward. They are literally like little superheroes for your project, keeping things organized, clean, and stress free. Enough of that, and let's show you how you can set up a virtual environment from the CLI. And then after that, we will look at how we can install pip, which stands for pip install packages. This tool is widely used to install and manage Python packages. Okay, so I opened up my terminal window, and in my current directory, I have no folders or files, as you can see here. And if I say ls-l, that shows no files at all. And if I say ls-la, that will show me the hidden folders as well. So in order to create a virtual environment, you would need to make sure that you already have installed Python virtual environment. If you haven't, then you can issue this command and hit enter. And if it prompts with the password, then go ahead and enter the password. And I already installed it, so nothing will happen. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually create the virtual environment for Python. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say Python 3 space dash m. M is literally to call for a particular module, and the module is called VENV, which stands for virtual environment. And I'm going to follow that with the name of the folder that you want to store your environment in. So I'm going to call this .venv. And the reason why I'm using the dot in front of the directory is to keep it hidden. This way it will not bother me so much. And then I'm going to hit enter. Now that we created our virtual environment, I want to activate my virtual environment. To do so, I would need to issue this command, source, and then .venv, and then I'm going to say bin, and I'm going to say activate. And at this point, I can start installing any library or any modules that my project requires it, and not going to be installed in my global system. Also, while we're here, if you wanted to deactivate the virtual environment, you can simply issue this command, deactivate. And you can see that the prompt have moved back to how it was previously. Now I'm going to activate it again, and I'm going to say source.venv bin activate. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to install the pip tool, and the way so that I can use it to install Python packages. So what I'm going to do, I am going to say sudo is the command in Linux that allows you to invoke an admin rights, apt, which is for being the package manager. And then I'm going to say install Python 3-pip. And then I'm going to hit enter. It is also worth to mention that if you have issues with the command, then try to update your system and then try again. So to update your system, you would need to issue this command, sudo apt update, and hit enter. And then once that has been done, then you can retry the command again. So now I'm going to install Netmiko. And to do this, I'm going to issue this command. I'm going to say pip3 install Netmiko. And then I'm going to hit enter. So now that we have installed Netmiko in this Python virtual environment, if I were to go back, let's say deactivate, for example, and then if I issue the Python 3 interpreter, which is been installed globally in my virtual machine, and in here in my interpreter, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say import Netmiko. You can see that the module has not been found. And the reason being is because I haven't actually installed it in my global system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to exit this. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to activate my virtual environment. And then I'm going to issue the same command, which is Python 3, to go into the interpreter. And here I'm going to say import Netmiko. And you can see that the module have been taken successfully with no issues whatsoever. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to open up a web browser and I'm going to open up my search engine, and in there I'm going to type Netmiko documentation, and the URL that you're after is the Netmiko API documentation. So I'm gonna click on this, and from the left hand side you can scroll down until you find the send_command class. And what you can do is you need to click on it, and I just want to show you something that we will be using quite a lot when we use the show commands. So on the right hand side here you can see all the arguments and parameters that are mandatory and optional. I can understand if this can be a little bit overwhelming, but once you understand this, it will make total sense to you. And not to mention, the majority of these arguments are optional anyway, so please don't be intimidated by this. So if I were to look at the first argument, for example, which is command_string, is expecting a string, which is str in Python language. It refers to a string, so on and so forth. And so this method or this class will help us execute command in a string format on the SSH channel. So what I want to show you is that if you are looking for a particular object or method or class, here is the place where you will find all the information you need. Another method or another class that you will need to use when we push configuration changes is the send_config_set. So if I scroll down, you can see it down there. And I'm going to click on it, and I can see from the right hand side that this method is mainly used to send the configuration down the SSH channel. Again, it has some arguments, which some are optional and some are mandatory, and so on and so forth. Finally, I want to show you an important function where we use to interact with the end device. This is something called the connect handler. And if I scroll up, you can, on the function section, you can see the connect handler function in here. So I'm going to click on it. And the main purpose of this function is to create an object based on the device type you are passing in. For example, when you are using Cisco IOS as the device type, this function will use the correct handler to send the right command, such as configuration terminal, to go to config mode. And then when you exit the configuration file, you can then send the write mem command to save your configurations, so on and so forth. Similarly, with Juniper, the connect handler will then create an object that will use the edit command as opposed to the configuration terminal to push configuration changes. So there are some intelligence in place under the hood of this function. Okay, with that being said, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to show you my current topology. So I'm going to go and head back to my ETH-ng. And in here, I have got about 6 devices. 4 devices are based on Cisco. So I have router A, router B, and router C are IOS-XE. And I have IOS-XR, as you can see on the screen. I also have Fortinet device as well as a Juniper device, which is VMX. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to make sure that I have connectivity to each device. So I'm going to say ping 192.168.1.1. That's for my router A. And as you can see, that is reachable. The same applies for my router B. And the same applies for my router C, and so on and so forth, guys. And also what I have done in the background is I have enabled SSH. So for instance, if I log into my router A and say show IP SSH, you can see that the current SSH version is 2. And if I say show run section line, you can see that line BTY01 has been enabled, and I am able to use SSH as well. And I have created a username or a local account for username admin, etc., etc. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to actually test this from my secure CRT. So I have router A I can log into. So is router B and router C. I also have the VMX, which I'm able to log in straight away, and the FortiGate as well. And then finally is my IOS-XR. As you can see, I've managed to log in. Okay, I'm going to walk you through 3 different use cases that I have prepared for you. So the first use case is to show you how to use Netmiko to connect to a single device. And then I'm going to move to the second use case where I'm going to show you how to use Netmiko to connect to multiple devices. And my final use case is to show you how you can use SSHDetect class, which will help you build your inventory files. But also you can use it to send show commands and push configs to the end device. So without further ado, let's open up my IDE and start coding. Okay guys, so I opened up my IDE and I created a new project, and I have created a new file called use_case1.py. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say from Netmiko, I want to import connect handler. And I'm going to also say from rich import print as r_print. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dictionary to specify all the keys we need to initiate the SSH request. So I'm going to say device equal, and I'm going to open and close curly bracket, and I'm going to press enter. And then in here, I'm going to specify the first parameter or the first key, and I'm going to say device_type. And I'm going to say Cisco IOS. And then I'm going to specify the host. And then here I'm going to say 192.168.1.1 for router A. And I'm going to specify the username. Oops, sorry. I need to put that between quotes. So I'm going to say username. And I'm going to specify the username, which is admin. And then also I'm going to specify the password. It's going to be Cisco 123. I'm also going to specify the secret. It's going to be the same as the password. And then finally, I'm going to specify the port. And since we are using SSH, I'm going to say port 22. Okay, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to create a connection object using the connect handler function. And what we are going to do, I'm going to say net underscore connect, and I'm going to assign that into a connect handler. And in here, I'm going to pass the device dictionary that I've just created. And the reason why we set the 2 stars at the front, or the double star operator, is to unpack the dictionary. Once unpacking the dictionary, you can then pass its key value pairs. So what I'm going to do next, I am going to create a variable, and that variable I'm going to call it output. Let's say show version, and I'm going to assign it to net underscore connect, and I'm going to specify the class that we want to use, which is send underscore command. And in here, I'm going to set the argument for command underscore string, and in here, I'm going to say show version. So at this point, you can put whatever commands you want. It doesn't really matter. And then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to say r underscore print. I'm going to specify the output underscore show underscore version. And at this stage, we are able to go ahead and execute the script. So I'm going to execute or run the script. And as you can see on the screen, we can see all the output from the show version command that we just sent down the SSH pipe. You can see all the information here. Now scroll down. So what I would like to show you next is if we were to examine the type of that output. So if I say print, and then I'm going to specify the type. What is the type of that variable, which is this guy? And I'm going to comment line 17 and execute the script again. You can see that the class type is a string. So obviously, if you want to use the output for data manipulation, or if you want to retrieve certain attributes or certain data from the output, it can be a little bit hard sometimes, especially when you have different iOS versions and different iOS platforms, etc., etc. So what we could use is something called use underscore text FSM, which I'm going to show you how you can do that. So if I were to specify another variable, and I'm going to say output underscore show version underscore text underscore FSM, and I'm going to assign it into the underscore connect object, and then I'm going to say send command, and I'm going to copy that command or the first parameter. I'm going to paste it here, and also I'm going to say use underscore text FSM, and I'm going to set that to true. And then what I'm going to say is I want to print the output of this variable, but I want to only see the type of that variable. And I will show you the reason in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and execute that one again. And you can see that the first output is a string and the second one is a list, which means if we then unpack that list, so if I say print or r underscore print, and we can specify this and execute that again. So what you see here is a list, and inside that list there is a dictionary, and inside that dictionary you've got some keys, and the key, for instance, like software underscore image, it gives you exactly the image that it uses, the version, the release, the Roman, the host name, etc., etc. So it makes our life easier to do some data manipulation and to pull certain data within a single command. Okay guys, so what I'm going to show you next is how you can then send certain commands into your end device. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new file, and that file I'm just going to call it config.txt. And in here, I'm going to say, I'm just going to create some random configurations, and I'm going to say interface loop back 200, and I'm going to assign that interface this IP address, and I'm going to say 200.200.200.200, and the subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255. I'm going to say no shutdown, and I'm going to say also description is going to be this is a test from Netmiko. And I'm going to save that file. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to comment all of this, and I'm going to create a new output. So I'm going to say output config, and I'm going to assign that into a new object, net_connect object. And I'm going to say the send_config from file. And in here, I'm going to say the argument config_file, and I'm going to specify the name of the file, which is config.txt. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to r_print output_config. And then what I'm going to do, if I want to save the configuration that has been pushed to the end device, I can then say net_connect save_config. So what we are doing here pretty much is we're using the net_connect object, and we are using the send_config from file class, and we are specifying the argument, and we are passing the location of the config file which we just created. And then what Netmiko is going to do, or the object is going to do, is going to push this configuration down the SSH pipe, and then it will assign the output into output_config, and then we are going to print it, and then we are going to save the configuration afterwards. So if I, just to prove, if I go back to my router A, if I say show IP interface brief, at the moment you can see that I have got only 2 up interfaces, and there is no loopback interface 200. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this. So you can see what is happening here. So we went to config terminal, and then we said interface loopback 200, IP address, no shot, and also we set the description. And what I can do, I can go back to my secure CRT and issue the same command. And as you can see on the screen here, so we've got another or additional interface that we just pushed the configuration to, loopback 200. Okay, so that's the first use case. And then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to show you the second use case where we can use Netmiko to connect to multiple devices. So I'm going to remove all of that code, or basically just comment it out. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to create actually a new Python file, and I'm going to call it inventory. And in here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a couple of lists. So the first one is going to be called inventory, and I'm going to assign it to a list. And inside that list, we are going to set our dictionaries. So I'm going to say the first dictionary, for instance, I'm going to say host name is going to be router-a. And then the second element is going to be the host. And inside that, or the value of that key is going to be 192.168.1.1. And then the second or the third key is going to be user, and the value for that is going to be admin. And then I'm going to set the password, and it's going to be Cisco123. And then finally, I'm going to set the device type, device underscore type, and I'm going to specify the device type, which is Cisco underscore iOS. And for quickness, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it multiple times. And here I'm just going to change it from B to C, from A to B, and then from B to C. And I'm going to change the IP address accordingly. And then I'm going to save this file. So I'm going to go back to my use case 1 file, and I'm going to say from inventory, I want to import inventory variable. So now if I go ahead and say I want you to print inventory, for instance, you can see that we are printing the list that we just created. So what we can do then is we can say something like, for each device in inventory, so we are going to iterate through the list, and each element within the list, there is a dictionary that is being created, and each dictionary would have a key and a value, and then that's where we can then use the connect handler, and then we will be able to pass the certain parameters accordingly. So what I will do, I will say net underscore connect, and I'm going to assign that into connect handler. And then inside that connect handler, I'm going to say device underscore type, and I'm going to say each underscore device, and I'm going to pass the key value. In that case, it's going to be device underscore type. And then I'm going to specify also the host. And then the username. And then I'm going to specify the password. And also one of the things that we could do is we could add the SSH. So we can say the port is going to be port 22, or we can just say 22, like that. So if I copy this, save the file, go back to my use case, and then add port equal each device equal port. Now that we've created the object, which is net underscore connect, what I can do, I can say output equal to net underscore connect, and I'm going to say the send command. I want to send the command, and in there I'm going to pass the argument, which is command underscore string, and in there I'm going to say show IP interface brief. Next, what I will do, I am going to print the output. So if we've done everything correctly and according to the plan, we can go ahead and execute this file. And you can see that the first device here, which is router A, has all of these interfaces, and then the second device, and then the third device, so on and so forth. So what you could do as well is you could say strip prompt equal to false. That means in the output, we will be able to see the host name as well. So if I go ahead and execute this one again, so you can see this is router A, router B, and router C. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you use case 3 right now, and I'm going to show you how you can use SSHDetect class, which will help you to build your inventory file. So what I'll do, I'll use the same script. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to add here SSHDetect. And then what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to go back to my inventory file and I am going to create a new list. And instead of boring you with the details, I've just created it earlier and I have just literally, I'm going to paste it now. So much like what we have before, the only difference is that I have got the Fortinet and the Juniper as well as the IOS-XR devices included in there. And I've called it inventory underscore full. So I'm going to save the file and then I'm going to go back to my code and I'm going to also import inventory full. So what I'm going to do next, I am going to say something like the following. So instead of specifying the device type here, I am going to remove this and I'm going to specify something called auto. And also I am going to, instead of using connect handler, I'm going to use SSH detect. So we're still going to pass the device IP address. We are still going to pass the username as well as the password and the port number as well. What we are going to do next, we are going to create a variable and that variable is going to be storing the device type. So I'm going to say device underscore type underscore detect equal to net underscore connect and I'm going to say auto detect, and then I'm going to just comment this line up and I'm going to print the device type that is being detected by the SSH detect. So once I'm happy with this, I think I am good to go to execute this. So you can see the first device, it detected that it uses Cisco underscore IOS. And if we give it a few moments, it should bring the second one. As you can see, the second one just popped up. And then finally the third one as well. So in theory, I didn't actually include the full inventory list. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the inventory underscore full list and I'm going to replace it with inventory. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to execute it again. So you can see that the very first 3 devices have been detected already, and now we are going to detect the 4th device. As you can see, Fortinet has been detected as well as Juniper, which uses Junos. And finally, the Cisco underscore XR, which is for iOS XR. Okay, so now that I showed you how you can then build your inventory file using the SSH detect, what we can do next is we can utilize that further to integrate it with connect handler. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to comment all of that and I am going to create a new variable called device and I'm going to assign that as a dictionary. And in here, I'm going to say device type as the key and the value is going to be auto detect. And then next, I'm going to specify the host And in here, I'm going to say each device, or actually I should just copy this. Next, be the username. And sorry, should be inside. And then I'm gonna copy that. Next is going to be the password. And it's going to be this. And finally is going to be the port. And the value is that. Next, what we are going to do, we are going to create the object, which is net_connect. And we are going to assign it to SSHDetect. And inside there, we are going to pass the dictionary that we just created. Next, we are going to say device_type_detect equal to net_connect dot auto detect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to update the device type key within device dictionary. So I would say device, and inside that, I'm going to call the key, which is device_type. And I'm going to assign that into the device type_detect variable. And then now that I have the up-to-date dictionary, which I can then push it into connect handler. So I can say with connect handler, and then I can specify devices or device as connection, for instance. And in here, what I can do, I can print the connection, which is the object, SSH object, and I'm going to say find prompt. And I would just comment that as well. And then I believe I am good to go at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this. So you can see that the first one is router A. The second one is router B. The third one is router C. And then you can see the FortiGate prompt. And then the Juniper prompt. And then finally the IOS-XR prompt. Now, what if you only have a list of IP addresses and, of course, the user credentials? Then what we could do is we could use SSHDetect to help us detect the type of the device, then update the device dictionary, then issue whatever commands we need to. So let me show you. So if I go back to my script, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to comment all of that. And in here, I'm going to create a list, and that list I'm going to say L_list_IPs equal to an empty list. And also what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a file, and that file I'm going to call it IP_addresses.txt. And in here, I am going to copy all of my IP addresses. So this is the file that will contain all my IP addresses, all the inventory that I have, let's say. And if I then say something like with open, and then we need to pass the IP address.text, and I only want to read that file, and I'm going to say as IP_file. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the file, and then I'm going to assign that file into a list. So I will say L_list_IPs equal to IP_file dot read lines. And at this point, if we wanted to print the data or the IP addresses in that file, I can then say for each IP in this list, I do want to print the IP address, so each IP. So if I were to go ahead and execute the script, you can see that we printed out all of the IP addresses that are configured in the IP address.txt. I can understand that there is an additional space, but the way to fix this is easy. We can use something called strip, and execute that again. You can see that the space is gone, or the new line is gone. So that's what we can do. And what I'm going to do next, I can then iterate through that list and then do some data manipulation and use the SSHDetect to get me the device type and then pass the parameters like such as the host name, the username, the password, the port, etc., and then so that we are able to log into each device and do what we need to do per device. So what I'm going to do next, I am going to say, I'm going to create a dictionary and I'm going to call that each device equal to, and then I'll assign that to an empty dictionary. And inside that dictionary, I'm going to create the first key, which is going to be device underscore type. And I'm going to assign that auto detect. And then if I just copy this, and here we are going to say the IP address is going to be that strip and the username is going to be admin, and then the password is going to be Cisco 123. Create the port key, and in here I'm going to specify port 22. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to create the object, which is net underscore connect. Next, I'm going to use the SSHDetect class, and I am going to pass the dictionary that we just created here. Say ** each device. And then now I can then assign a variable to figure out the device type. So I will say device type underscore detect equal to net underscore connect auto detect. And then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to assign the key, the device type key, with the device type that has been detected. I'll say each device and set the key, which is device underscore type, that is going to equal to device underscore type underscore detect. And then what I'm going to do then, I'm going to say with connect handler, let's assign each device dictionary, and I'm going to say as connection. That would be the new object that we will be using in order for us to send commands. Now, based on my list, I already showed you that my list contains Cisco IOS-XR, as well as Fortinet and Junos as well. So obviously there are commands that are not compatible with every platform. So what I have to do then, I'm going to categorize each platform so that I can send the appropriate commands for each device type. So what I can do here, I can say something like if Cisco underscore IOS and each device, and we can say device type. Then what I want to do, I want to go ahead and say print Cisco IOS, and the command is going to be show version. Just a print statement to indicate that the Cisco IOS device type have been invoked, and the print statement will be then triggered, and then you will see the Cisco IOS show version on the screen. And next, I'm going to assign the output, or I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to assign it into connection. So send command, and I want to issue the show version. But we need to say command underscore string, and then the command is going to be show version. And what I will do, I'm going to copy all of that multiple times for quickness, and here I'm going to say elif. So Cisco IOS, and then the next type is Cisco underscore XR, and then the next type is Fortinet, and then finally is Juniper. So here we're going to say Cisco IOS-XR. And again, the command is going to be the same. And also, I forgot to print the output. So I'm going to say print output. And I'm going to print an end statement. And I'm going to do the same for every section. So now, Cisco IOS, if Cisco IOS is inside the device type, then that block will be triggered. If Cisco underscore XR, then that block will be triggered. The same applies for Fortinet, and I understand Fortinet will have different command. So we are going to say, instead of saying show version, we're going to have to say get system status. And we are going to say here as well is that this is Fortinet. And we are going to update that as well, where we say get system status. And then finally, we are going to tackle the Juniper. So this is going to be Juniper, Junos, and I believe it's the same command, show version. So we're going to leave that as is. And if we did everything accordingly, then we are good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and execute the script. Right, as you can see from the screen here, so it says that I found the first output, which is Cisco IOS show version. And you can see the output of the first device. And you can see that this is the end here. And then the second device, again, is going to be the same Cisco IOS show version. And that's the end here. And then that is the third one, which is router C. So you have the name or the host name, you can see it on the screen. And then if we scroll up, you can see that the Fortinet has been detected as well as we invoked the correct command. And you can see here the version is FortiGate VM64, etc., etc. You can see the serial number, all the different attributes. And then if we scroll down, you can see the Junos. So the Junos uses the same command, show version. And you can see the host name is VMX-1. And then finally is the Cisco IOS-XR. And again, it uses the same command. And you can see the output on the screen. Okay, so we've reached the end of the video. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so that you never miss our future tutorials and tech insights. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop a comment below. I read all your comments and I'm here to assist you. So stay curious, stay inspired, and until next time, peace.